Teaching Talks. My name's Emily Tomford. I am computer science professor and chair of the CS department at Reach University. My pronouns are she, her.
Hi, everybody. My name's Monica McGill, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from csedresearch.org.
So, Monica, this is great. This is our last in this podcast series. I'm super happy to be able to look back on it with you.
Yeah, same. So tell me, what was one discussion over the last few episodes that stood out to you over our series?
I gotta say, my favorite paper and discussion was the one about centering minoritized students' perspectives. It was called What Makes CS Learning Consequential? I love that it really honored the profession of teaching and showed the difference that educators, practitioners can have in creating, what do they call it? CS and the self, creating an integrated identity where computer science is something that helps you make sense of the world and act upon it. I thought that was really great. They called it the teacher as the agent for consequential learning. I think that's really going to stick with me. What about you, Monica?
Great. Yeah. And that research was conducted by Weiwei, Jean Ryu, and Alicia Morris in Los Angeles. So thank you for that. They have done other work as well, which I highly recommend you all take a peek at. What stood out to me, I think it's great as a researcher to have this where as these discussion groups happen, I can actually attend as an author and share my perspectives of what we were thinking in it, but also it's a great learning opportunity for me as a researcher to hear how teachers are internalizing that information and, quite frankly, learn what I missed. So you have to bring a little bit of humility into it, but it's a wonderful opportunity. And I hope more researchers can join in the future as their works are discussed.
Yeah, it was really great having you there in the role as the author and explaining your thinking and your process and helping us clarify and understand, but at the same time being willing to take feedback. I thought that was really powerful. And when Jane Waite joined us for the abstraction talk, that was amazing too, because we so rarely get to, have the insight into the process and the intention. And talking with the authors, I just think is a really valuable use of our time. So thank you.
Absolutely. From the teacher's perspective who may have not conducted research before, it just gives that insight into those things that we have to do to really collect the evidence that will be meaningful and hopefully useful to them in the future as we think about findings. We had a mailbag. Tell us about the mailbag.
Yeah, this is our last episode of the series, and we thought we should have what every podcast has, which is a mailbag episode. So we sent some questions out to our community. We got some comments back, and I'd love to go through and discuss them with you.
Great.
The first question was, how has research, meaning reading papers or learning evidence-based practices or frameworks in professional learning, how has it impacted your teaching practice?
That was a great question. We actually got a couple responses to this question. So Jason Sagami, who is computer science faculty at Griffith University in Australia, first of all, shout out for joining us and accommodating the time differential between Pacific time in the US and Australia. Jason writes, my main interest in CS education, computer science education, is in understanding how computational thinking is theorized and practiced in the United States K-12 education system, as there remains little international consensus in a wide variety of approaches. So, Emily, what do you think about that?
This is a big issue to me and to a lot of people in the CS Ed community, is that we toss around the term computational thinking a lot, but there is no agreed upon definition that is shared across all contexts and all countries. I think it's great that Jason has a specific problem that they're coming to research about. And it's definitely, I think, something that reading and comparing and discussing and critiquing can really come to bear on, because that elevates us all in our ability to define computational thinking, to find a space for it in our practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to approach this a little bit different in that this also highlights the need for us to work internationally and understand where we are in different countries and understand that some are farther ahead and some are farther behind in a multitude of areas, not just a single one. And sharing what we learn across borders is absolutely critical. And I hope we can continue to do that.
Yeah. We also had a great response to this question from our dear Debbie Weissman, who is a CS teacher in Southern California. She says, the research and discussions have provided me with the statistics and theoretical frameworks to support my current teaching methods, as well as offer me new strategies to help my students learn the abstract concepts and skills of computer science. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's really, really good. Kind of an unintended consequence, really, as you have engaged in these discussion groups for years now, and really focusing on the research practice, but more so the findings and contextualizing, helping teachers contextualize that for their own classrooms. We don't sit in discussion groups and say, here is how you do an independent t-test, for example. But this is just that inferential learning, or the learning that's happening within this ecosystem that teachers can take back and maybe one day do their research on their own. We fully support that.
So the next question we asked was, what's one action you've taken as a result of attending the discussion group or reading the articles?
And again, this response is from Debbie Weissman. Debbie says, I consider the role of daydreaming. And in assigning coding projects, especially with young learners, I ask them to imagine and then code, quote, could be, unquote, futures for themselves. These ideas came from reading Jones and Howard, 2022, Traversing the Gaps, an Afrofuturist approach to social change through dreaming in science fiction and STEM computer science education.
Yes, Debbie, that was one of my favorite papers we've ever read as well. The idea of freedom dreaming and Afrofuturism applied to technology, I just thought that was so powerful. And I've been trying to follow up and reading every other thing those people have written. Jones and Howard are two cutting edge researchers working at the part of computer science education that, again, is consequential and that meets students where they are and opens up possibilities for everyone.
That's fantastic. I've not read that paper, and now I have to go read it.
You have to, yes.
So the next question from the mailbox is, what theory or framework or idea has stuck with you, and how are you grappling with it?
Yeah, this was a big one. And Elizabeth Bacon, who is the director of pedagogy at Coder-Z, had a great answer. I'm going to read it all out. She says, interest development theory, which is based on a reading we did a few months ago called Interest Development Theory in Computing Education, a Framework and Toolkit for Researchers and Designers. So Elizabeth goes on to say, I think that teachers are being pushed to be entertaining and compete with TikTok or other social media to get kids engaged in class. But even if that might get their immediate attention, it's not enough for them to engage in the kind of cognitive labor that's necessary for learning, and the attention is probably short-lived. I liked the model because it feels less manipulative than the razzle-dazzle approach, and it looks to long-term change in how students approach the discipline. We're trying to incorporate more reflection on impacts and value, as well as explicitly teaching students to be more inclusive and give teachers resources to help each student know that they belong.
That's fantastic. And shout out to the authors on that, Joseph Michaelis and David Weintraub. This is a journal article. It's actually relatively long, but that's wonderful that you all dug into this and were able to influence Elizabeth's thinking.
Yeah, and I love that paper too. It's definitely making me think about the components of interest. So not just, are you interested in computer science, yes or no, and accepting no as an answer, but digging further into it and really seeing that the components are knowledge, value, and belonging. So if any one of those things is lacking, that might lead someone to say that they're not interested in a topic just because, for example, they don't feel they belong or they don't understand what it's about. I've definitely been applying that in my practice as well.
Fantastic. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening to our first series of CS Teacher Talks. We'd definitely love to hear your feedback on this series as we are just starting to engage with podcasts and bringing this all to K-12 CS educators. But we're also interested in learning about what you would like to hear in the future. So feel free to reach out to us at podcast@csedresearch.org, and we will take all of your feedback into consideration.
If you'd like to be a part of CS Teacher Talks or our discussion groups that don't get recorded as podcasts, you can come along and find us at csedresearch.org, where all the information for when we meet, where we meet, what the papers are to read, and you can join a Google group to get reminders any day we're going to meet, along with the paper link and topic. So I hope to see you there. Everyone is welcome to join. You do not have to have any particular qualifications or characteristics. You just have to be open-minded, and willing to learn. Well, thank you so much, Monica. This was great. Thank you for being our leader and founder and making this all possible. And a big thank you to our wonderful intern, Jordan Williamson, for writing our practice briefs, and to Jason Zagami, Debbie Weissman, and Elizabeth Bacon for sending us their comments for this episode. And most of all, thanks to all of you, our dedicated, generous, always curious CS educators.